Revealed on my son's birthday, the incredible request that transformed our relationship forever. Nate Thompson stood in the warm glow of the morning sun streaming through the living room windows, the smell of chocolate cake swirling in the air like nostalgia. 13 candles flickered atop the cake, courageous against the impending gust of breath. Caleb, his son, radiated an awkward blend of excitement and anxiety. Nate's heart swelled with pride, but a knot of unease tightened in his chest. Years of pouring his spirit into teaching and nurturing their fragile world after his wife's devastating loss weighed heavily upon him. Each day, as a single father bared the scars of exhaustion, a constant battle against the ghosts lurking in the past. As family gathered around the table to sing, Nate felt the growing pressure of a clock ticking down to the moment he both longed for and feared. When the final note of Happy Birthday faded, Caleb's brow furrowed. Nate's stomach lurched. "Dad," Caleb said, voice wavering.
"I want to meet Grandpa."
The name cut through the air, stark and cold. Nate's heart sank, tangled in betrayal and broken ties. The image of his father flashed in his mind, a man steeped not just in engineering triumphs, but in a bitterness that had ripped their family apart decades ago. Nate hesitated. Should he allow this wish to take root when old wounds festered so deeply? His instincts screamed to protect his son from the dark shadows of history, but the look in Caleb's eyes, a mix of hope and longing, twisted Nate's gut. Part of him yearned for reconciliation, the notion of bridging a divide long left unspoken. Yet the bitter taste of resentment coated the edges of those memories. His father's pride had formed an impenetrable wall, and he'd never found the strength to climb it. As thoughts collided, each slicing deeper than the last, the air thickened. Did he truly want to open that door? Would the misery that had lingered like a bad smell return? They could achieve a sense of wholeness or derail into a tragedy of pain yet again. Caleb's excitement sat heavy against the growing uncertainty inside Nate. The conversations with his father were buried under years of silence, an echoing void reflected in his relationship with Caleb. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Nate's mind jostled between obligation and fear, trapped in a swirling storm of emotions. The fragile foundation he'd built with Caleb was now under siege. Would opening their family's Pandora's box jeopardize their bond? He could measure their connection, quantify the love as he had every lesson in class. But love was unmanageable, swirling, unpredictable. As days ticked by toward the proposed meeting with Caleb's grandfather, tension suffocated him. The thought of encounter felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, heart racing, breath quickening at the possibility of a fall. Could one man's redemption reshape their lives, redefine who they were? Nate wrestled with the conflicting emotions of his son's eagerness and his personal insecurities about the past. Each moment became a cacophony of unresolved anger, fear, and longing. Just hours before the meeting, a message arrived, shattering the last semblance of composure. Old secrets throbbed as if revived from slumber, igniting his chest with turmoil. Nate stood at the precipice of legacy and shame, the question weighing heavily on his shoulders. Could they truly rewrite their family's story, or would they be forever doomed to repeat the cycle of hurt? Every painful choice now loomed in sharp focus, leaving Nate yearning for answers just beyond reach as the storm brewed. The hour ticked closer to the moment of reckoning. Nate stood in the kitchen, hands resting on the counter, staring blankly at a crumpled piece of paper that cradled the last remnants of hope. It was an old letter from his father, a feeble olive branch, but harsh with the weight of history. Words like regret and forgiveness danced mockingly in front of him, resonating with every insecurity that had plagued Nate since childhood. His father had been a towering figure in Nate's life, yet one shrouded in disappointment. As he paced back and forth, Nate's mind churned. Would confronting this painful past be a misstep, or could it forge an unexpected path forward? His heart drummed wildly, each beat echoing Caleb's innocent plea. The boy had a light in his eyes, a hope Nate had buried in the shadows of his own despair. Would he shatter that light with his indecision? Determined to make sense of the chaos, he sought solace in the small garden outside. He inhaled deeply, allowing the fragrance of blooming flowers to wash over him. It was a world far removed from the tumult in his heart. Nature had a way of healing, he thought, reprising what he longed to do for his son. Could he approach the family fracture with a gardener's patience, nurturing, healing, and allowing growth despite the thorns? But could he foster healing without grappling with the ghosts lurking in the background? Nate was not a man who shied away from hard truths. His experiences in the classroom had taught him that facing difficult conversations often yielded the greatest understanding. Yet, this was not algebra. There was no formula to ease the pain of a fractured father-son bond. With resolve brewing within, Nate checked the clock. It was almost time for Caleb's eagerly awaited rendezvous with his grandfather. The thought filled him with dread, yet beneath it lay a flicker of possibility. Could this meeting be more than just a chapter of confrontation? Perhaps it was an opportunity for Nate to break free of his own chains. As he returned indoors, he found Caleb meticulously arranging his birthday gifts, an eager smile illuminating his face. The sight brought Nate a pang of joy intertwined with worry. "You excited about meeting Grandpa?" Nate asked, his voice more steady than he felt. Caleb's enthusiasm was infectious. "I can't wait, Dad. I have so many questions for him, and maybe he can teach me about cars. He's a genius." Nate's heart twisted at the words. Genius, a term often unreservedly attributed to those who achieved. But what about the genius of a broken relationship or the complexities of generational trauma? "Caleb," Nate hesitated, his thoughts racing. What if he surprises you? What if he's not what you think?" Caleb furrowed his brow, innocence crossing his face. "But he's my grandpa. He has to be good, right? You were angry, but I want to give him a chance." As Nate watched his son's unwavering confidence, he felt a swell of emotion grown deep within. Self-doubt mingled with admiration. Caleb was charting a course forward, not bound by the burdens of the past. In that moment, clarity struck Nate like lightning. He could empower Caleb to approach this meeting with an open heart and mind, one that he had failed to do for himself for far too long. He needed to forge that first step for both their futures, shedding the weight of history. With every passing minute, the storm inside him began to quiet, replaced by an unexpected resolve. Perhaps it wasn't his father's past that defined their futures. Perhaps the hope for reconciliation resided in seeking understanding, in breaking the cycle for Caleb's sake. As the midday sun dipped low in the sky, painting the world in hues of orange and gold, Nate made a decision. He would approach his father not just as a wounded son but as a father desperate to protect the sanctity of his own family. The time had come to face the old ghosts, if not for him, then for Caleb. His thoughts suddenly spiraled as the doorbell rang, the sound piercing through the calm he had just cultivated. Nate steeled himself, a wave of anxiety crashing over him. Could the pendulum of history truly swing toward a new beginning? Or would it become yet another echo in an endless cycle of hurt? With trembling hands, he opened the door, ready for whatever awaited him on the other side. Standing at the threshold, Nate drew a deep breath that barely penetrated the cocoon of his anxiety. The door creaked open, revealing his father, a man worn by years of disappointment and regret, yet still framed by that same powerful aura Nate had always known. Time had etched deep lines into his face, making him look more vulnerable than Nate remembered, but the moment held the same tense electricity that had sparked between them throughout his childhood. "Hello, Nate," his father said, voice gravelly yet unsure, stepping into the light. While the words felt familiar, the context was drenched in uncertainty. "Dad," Nate replied, his own voice steadying as he shifted to make room, inviting the specter of the past into his home. As his father crossed the threshold, there was a momentary silence, thick with decades of unspoken words. Nate found himself grappling with the urge to retreat. There were so many things left unsaid, so many scars unhealed. Yet, the anticipation of Caleb's joyful chatter tugged at him, reminding him of the stakes. Where's Caleb? His father's eyes flickered about the space, searching. He's in his room. But he'll be here soon. Nate paused, rethinking how to express what he felt. I hope you're ready for him. He's been counting the days to meet you. His father shifted his weight, a spark of unexpected vulnerability shimmering in his expression. I'm glad to hear that. I've had a lot of time to think.
Time.
A double-edged sword that had both sharpened their pain and dulled it into a near-muted ache. Nate's heart thudded painfully, wrestling with his father's lack of awareness about the shadow still lurking between them. What exactly have you been thinking about? Nate prompted, testing the waters, his posture rigid, yet willing to listen. About how much I've missed, his father admitted, voice thick with emotion. How much I lost when I let my own issues drive a wedge between us. Nate's pulse quickened at the acknowledgement. Could this be the moment that initiated a breakthrough, or merely another false dawn? Stricken by the weight of expectation, he grappled with his desire for honesty, feeling every nerve pulsing as he confronted his tangled feelings. Then, why did you come now? After all these years? Nate asked, his voice edged with skepticism. I know I don't deserve your trust, his father replied, sincerity pouring out. But I want to try to be better, not just for you, for myself and for Caleb. Nate felt a flicker of guarded hope. The conversation was far from perfect, but it was a start, a fragile thread that could connect them again. Yet, as Nathan mentally reached for conviction, memories surfaced of unfulfilled promises and silent tears. What if I told you that Caleb deserves to see a better version of you? That he deserves to know you without the baggage? Nate's eyes locked on his father's, searching for something: remorse, commitment, or even the spark of transformation. I want to show him that, his father said earnestly, and to show you that I've changed. The door swung open then, and Caleb appeared, eyes wide and brimming with excitement. Grandpa, he shouted, launching into an embrace that startled both men into silence. The sight nestled warmth in Nate's chest, igniting a fresh sense of purpose. Caleb stepped back, beaming as he turned between them. Are you two going to play cars? I want to hear all about the ones you built. His father chuckled, a sound Nate hadn't heard from him in years. I'd love to tell you about that, kid. But first, I owe your dad a promise, don't I? Nate felt time freeze for a brief moment as Caleb's wide-eyed innocence created an unexpected bond between the men. Yet, with anxiety threading through the connection, Nate swallowed hard. A decision lingered in the air. He needed to confront this history boldly, for his son's future. The atmosphere grew charged with expectation. Nate felt the nudge toward understanding. Could this be the long-overdue reckoning for their fractured family? Let's get started, then, Nate said finally, heart racing not just with fear but with an unfamiliar sense of anticipation. But know that the work we have ahead won't be easy. It's time to face everything together. As they shared a tentative smile, Nate felt an unexpected surge of determination. For better or worse, the three of them stood at the precipice of transformation, anchoring hope with the promise of a new beginning. But would that hope withstand the storm of their shared past? Only time would tell, as their journey was just beginning. Would the transition to a better relationship require confronting deeper truths than Nate was ready to face? The laughter of Caleb reverberated through the room, a melody of innocence that lent a lightness to the charged atmosphere. Nate watched his son with a mixture of pride and apprehension, acutely aware of the stakes. As Caleb dragged his grandfather toward the makeshift racetrack in the living room, excitement radiated off him in waves. It was a stark contrast to the apprehension gnawing Nate's stomach. Nate found a seat on the edge of a worn-out armchair, its fabric familiar yet so distant, as he contemplated the moment's precariousness. Could they really build a new foundation on the shaky ground of their collective past? His father's tentative steps toward redemption were a flicker of hope, but hopes had to be guarded. Too many times had they turned to ash. Can I build a super-fast car? Caleb called out, his eyes sparkling with dreams. Of course. Let us make it the fastest in all of Rosewood. His father exclaimed, his laughter a strange symphony where joy and hesitation intermingled. Watching them, Nate felt a swell of pride. This was what he'd yearned for, a simple, joyous moment, unclouded by the shadows of history. Yet beneath that surface enjoyment lay the gnawing worry of whether his father could meet this new role. Could he really show up, or would the failings of the past weigh him down like an anchor? "Dad," Nate interrupted, his voice cutting through the playful banter. "There's something we need to address." The room quieted abruptly, the tension coiling around them once more, tighter than before. Caleb's eyes darted between them in confusion, sensing the shift in tone. "What's wrong?" With the weight of the question heavy in the air, Nate swallowed hard. "It's important for Caleb to understand who you are. All of you." His heart pounded, not out of anger, but of an increasing determination. His father's expression darkened, a familiar grimace overtaking his features. "I thought we could just have fun today. Ease into it?" Nate shook his head, infusing his stance with the fatalistic salvation he had considered. "We can't just gloss over what happened. It would be unfair to him. He deserves to know you honestly, even if it's uncomfortable." His father shifted uncomfortably, face crumpling as if the weight of a long-buried truth resurfaced for air. "I can't promise I'll be perfect. I've made so many mistakes, none of us are perfect," Nate interjected, uncharacteristically bold. "But honesty is the beginning. If you want a relationship with Caleb and me, transparency has to be a part of it." Caleb, still clutching a toy car, looked at both men, his innocence a painful reminder of how fragile this moment was. All it took was one misstep, one miscommunication. "Grandpa, do you have a magic car?" He piped up, trying to lift the atmosphere, oblivious to the storm brewing in the adults. "Sometimes, the magic comes from being brave," Nate responded, locking eyes with his father, hoping to solidify the point. "It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's necessary." A silence fell, thick like fog, as Nate's father wrestled with the confluence of fear and hope crisscrossing his mind. The lesson urged to flee contrasted sharply with the weight of responsibility, a realization that if he didn't engage now, he might lose another chance with his son. Nate could see him grappling with doubt, masking unmasked vulnerability. "I want to show you both that I'm better," his father finally uttered, voice heavy yet earnest. "But I need to know you'll be there to help me through this." Nate's heartbeat quickened. The sincerity of the request echoed in the confines of his mind. Could this be the turning point? A new pact formed on the altar of brokenness? "We will be," he affirmed, cautiously optimistic. "We'll navigate this together." As Caleb's laughter wove its way back into the atmosphere, a fragile seed of understanding began to take root, fueled by a combination of reluctance and resolve. Nate had opened the door to that exchange and offered a glimpse into rebuilding their lives, but beneath that delicate bloom of possibility, Nate felt the sharp edges of doubt linger. They were venturing into uncharted territory, and confronting the past would be akin to inviting a storm. Would the sunlight break through the clouds, or would it simply result in a tempest? The challenge lay ahead, a test of their collective resilience and willingness to face what lay beneath the facades they had constructed. As Nate steeled himself with that truth, he realized that the true intensity of change often lay hidden within vulnerability. All eyes turned to Caleb as he suggested they race the cars. The boy's face glowed with eagerness, but Nate's mind continued to whirl with internal debates. Was he truly ready to unearth buried trauma, or would this journey become a recurring cycle of disappointment? With that question weighing heavily on him, Nate couldn't shake the anticipation of what was to come. The moment of truth beckoned, and it was a call he had no choice but to answer. Would they emerge from the past stronger, or would they stumble and falter once again? As laughter erupted around the living room, Nate felt an electric tension pulsing beneath his skin. The excitement of racing toy cars temporarily masked the silence that had hung heavy moments before. However, every joyous cheer from Caleb only reminded Nate of the fragile strings connecting them all. They had opened a delicate dialogue, yet doubts clawed at him like uninvited guests. Nate watched his father struggle to fully embrace the joy emanating from Caleb. The old man's laughter felt forced, a mask over a deeper chasm of self-doubt. Could he truly commit to this new chapter? The weight of these thoughts left Nate restless, shifting slightly in his seat. He needed a plan, a way to structure their week that would help his father ease into this newfound relationship without overwhelming him. But how? Caleb, Nate finally called out, drawing the boy's attention. What do you think we should do while we wait for our cars to dry? Maybe we can think of a theme for a race? Caleb's eyes sparkled, and for a brief moment, Nate witnessed youth untouched by worry. Superheroes. I want to be Iron Man, Caleb shouted, his imagination ignited. Beneath his father's hesitant demeanor, Nate sensed a flicker of hope emerge. And Grandpa can be the Hulk. Strong and all, he offered, trying to lighten the atmosphere. Sure, his father replied, albeit weakly. I've got the strength, but I'll need the speed. His attempt at humor struck Nate as an earnest desire for acceptance. The juxtaposition of laughter and discomfort was familiar territory. Yet the sweet innocence of Caleb's world felt like a temporary mirage, and the harsh reality of the past loomed over them. Nate couldn't let fear dictate their future. He resolved to establish boundaries and expectations, something solid to build on as they navigated these uncharted waters. Dad, Nate ventured, desperation creeping into his voice. I know this is new for both of us. But we need to set some ground rules, don't you think? Can we agree to check in with each other as we go? Like having a safety net? Nate's father straightened in the chair, appearing thoughtful. Safety net, huh? You mean, like trying to communicate without his voice trailed off, and he glanced at Caleb, who was focused entirely on his toy. Yes, without avoiding the hard stuff, Nate guided him gently. It's not just about the big moments. It's the daily check-ins, too. We can create a family mantra, a way of keeping our communication open. We've all been working through fear in different ways, so we need to lean on honesty. His father's gaze hardened, betraying an internal struggle Nate grappled to understand. But at the same time, he saw a flicker of understanding dawning. I can try, he offered slowly, as if the commitment weighed more than just words. But sometimes, I don't know what to say, Nate. That honesty resonated with Nate, crackling with shared vulnerability. Neither do I, but that's okay. We can figure it out together. Caleb interjected, oblivious to the heaviness surrounding them. I have an idea. What if each one of us tells a secret about our superhero powers? Nate chuckled, thankful for Caleb's innocent enthusiasm. Great idea. Let us start with Grandpa. Caleb beamed, urging his grandfather to share first, but Nate felt an insatiable urgency bubbling within him. After a moment, with a shaky breath, his father began, revealing his power was resilience, his ability to persevere through difficulties. It was a safe choice, but it marked a monumental shift. Nate's heart swelled slightly. They were, at last, breaking through the exterior wall with words and emotions. As Caleb shared the story of his own powers, Nate felt the details seeping into their family fabric, engaging all three in a moment that might just be the foundation they needed. But with every word, Nate's mind whirled with apprehension. This had only scratched the surface, and beneath false bravado lay mountains yet to be climbed. With this new commitment echoed in their shared laughter, Nate faced an unexpected revelation. He recognized that though he navigated the present with trepidation, he now had the potential to grow, to strengthen the roots of their family tree. Each revelation would unveil more layers. What other secrets would come to light? But even as hope blossomed, a twist carved a path of tension in his gut. He was acutely aware that tearing down walls could just as easily expose hidden scars. Distracted by the thought, Nate felt it deepen. He understood change was inevitable. He just didn't know how to prepare for the consequences. Would they emerge empowered from their truths, or would unresolved wounds unravel the thread they began weaving that night? The question echoed in the corners of his mind as they laughed together in that easy camaraderie. Nate contemplated the risks that came with honesty, but through it emerged a compelling urgency to summon both courage and patience. It was time to address the reluctance that still shadowed his father. Once more, an underlying tension emerged, lurking beneath the surface, as the clock ticked mercilessly forward. The next step loomed, and Nate felt drawn toward the inevitable confrontation buried in his father's past, a confrontation that desperately needed to take place. In that moment, Nate knew. Clarity awaited as he stood on the brink of what must come. Would he gather the strength to face that buried reluctance, or would fear and doubt prevail one last time? Nate woke the next morning to sunlight filtering through the curtains, a stark contrast to the familial shadows that had clouded their interactions for years. The enthusiasm of the previous night's bonding session still echoed within him, but so did a persistent undercurrent of anxiety. His father's past loomed large, presenting an opportunity for dialogue unlike any they had attempted before. The conversations had begun, but what would they unearth? As he brewed coffee, Nate prepared mentally for the day ahead. He needed to find a way to navigate this fragile equilibrium, a balance of vulnerability and strength. Today, he resolved to put into action the ideas they discussed, but he was acutely aware of how easily one ill-timed word could topple this delicate structure. The memory of Caleb's superhero declarations lingered, filling Nate with both hope and hesitation. He understood the power of words. They could either imprison, like the secrets his father harbored, or liberate, fostering transformation. Could he conjure the right words to encourage openness? "Hey, Caleb," Nate called out, breaking the morning hush. "Do you want to help me put together a special birthday card for Grandpa? We can include those superhero powers we talked about." Caleb bounded into the kitchen, excitement bubbling in him. "Yeah. Can I draw the Hulk with big muscles?" Nate smiled, but a knot formed in his stomach. "Sure. But I also think it might be good to write some feelings in there, like how Grandpa makes us feel strong, too." The prospect of crafting a heartfelt card felt like a testing ground for honesty. If they could express their emotions even on paper, maybe the conversation ahead would be a little easier. As they dove into the card decoration with markers and colorful paper, Nate's mind wandered back to his father's vulnerability, how it rumbled beneath the surface like a thunderstorm waiting to break. What would it take to encourage his father to let go? Nate found himself contemplating the complicated nature of resilience, leading him down a deeper path of understanding his own weaknesses. While Caleb decorated, Nate felt an unexpected surge of hope. He yearned for this moment, this affection to stretch into something meaningful. "Caleb," he asked, "what do you love most about Grandpa?" The question prompted Caleb to gaze up thoughtfully. "I love how he lets me play outside and always finds the cool bugs. He never says no." "Exactly," Nate affirmed, feeling warmth wash over him. "He really does take care of us in his own way. The best superheroes do, don't they?" Caleb nodded enthusiastically, and Nate captured that moment, the bond between grandson and grandfather reflecting a flicker of the significance of intimacy. Perhaps in recognizing their shared strengths, his father might feel the confidence to confront his hidden fears. With the card nearly complete, Nate's focus shifted again, swirling back to his father. Would he be receptive to this approach? Could Nate frame their discussion as an extension of this energy? Exhausted but determined, Nate positioned himself mentally for the impending conversation. As they finished, Caleb excitedly waved the card. "Let us go give it to him." "Okay, buddy. Just 1 minute." Nate's heart raced. The time had come to face what they had started. Striding to his father's room, he felt the weight of every unspoken word drifting in the air. Yet, as they neared, a different thought struck him, a realization that they were making strides toward rebuilding their family's foundation, brick by brick. He knew honesty would require patience, but perhaps today could be the first step into the light. What if this fragile moment held the key to unraveling deeper truths? Could the small exchange inspire more than fleeting joy? At the threshold, Nate hesitated, mind racing. Would the birthday card reveal a starting point for deeper connections, or would his father withdraw further into his shell? With resolve thickening the air, Nate took a deep breath, preparing to step into the unknown. As he raised his hand to knock, Nate was struck by another worry. What if confronting the ghosts of the past only evoked further regret? Each second felt stretched until finally he knocked. The moment of truth loomed ominously ahead. Would it lead to connection or to confrontation? The door creaked open, revealing his father, dressed in a faded t-shirt and shorts, a ghost of the vibrant man Nate remembered from childhood. Time had worn the edges of his father's optimism to a dull point, yet there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes as he saw Caleb bouncing with the card balanced precariously in his small hands. "Hey, Grandpa." Caleb's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. The child seemed unburdened by the emotional weight Nate carried, an innocent bridge between past pain and possible healing. "Hey there, buddy," his father replied, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Nate cleared his throat, feeling the pressure of uncharted territory. "Dad, Caleb and I wanted to give you something for your birthday." He stepped forward, holding the card out. "It's from us." His father hesitated but reached for the card, glancing down at the colorful scribbles and Caleb's exuberant drawings. The moment seemed beautifully ordinary, yet something deeper was at stake. "What's this?" The sudden gentleness in his father's voice suggested a willingness to connect. "It's a birthday card." Caleb beamed. "It has superhero drawings and stuff about how you're the best grandpa ever. You let me play outside and look for bugs." Nate's heart raced as he watched his father absorb the words, his facade cracking for just a moment. The corner of his father's mouth twitched, perhaps in recognition of something he had long buried, a connection he feared to reclaim. "Thank you, Caleb." His father's voice was soft, vulnerable. "That means a lot to me." Nate seized the opportunity. "We were just talking about how heroes can sometimes be the people we don't expect. You've always taken care of us in unique ways, Dad." He dared to proceed, voice steady despite the tremors in his chest. "Maybe it's time we shared more openly with each other, like you and I used to." His father shifted uncomfortably at the mention of their past, and Nate noticed how his shoulders tensed. The invisible wall that had stood for so long was still partly intact. But now, he sensed a crack in it, an opening that could lead to something transformative. "I don't know if I can talk about things from long ago," came the reply, laced with a thread of sadness. Nate's inner conflict surged. How could he continue without pushing too far? "I get that. But we've changed, Dad. Maybe it's time we find out who we are now. There are parts of our story we need to piece together, for all our sakes." His father's eyes now betrayed a mix of fear and curiosity, as if Nate had unknowingly scratched at ancient scars. It struck Nate like a lightning bolt. Was this the moment where they began to unearth their truth, or would it send his father retreating further? Caleb looked between the two men, blissfully unaware of the gravity of their exchange. "Can we look for bugs outside later, Grandpa? I want to show you the one I found last time." The interruption pulled Nate back from the brink. He could feel the balance shifting, the air thick with potential. "Yes, let us talk, and then we'll find those bugs." He hoped the invitation didn't sound overly hopeful, yet the moment felt pregnant with possibilities. His father took a breath, and Nate could see the wheels turning. This was no longer just a simple card. "Okay," his father said finally, his voice low. "Maybe we should talk." As his father reluctantly agreed, Nate realized the importance of this moment, both steps forward and many fears unveiled. Would they successfully navigate whatever depths lay ahead? Or would these early efforts unravel before they truly began to heal? Uncertainty swirled around him, but it was a step taken. Even the tension felt necessary. Their first real conversation was upon them, but anxiety knotted Nate's thoughts. What hidden truths lay beneath the surface, waiting to emerge? Would the weight of their past propel them forward, or would it suffocate them in its shadow? Nate felt his pulse quicken as he prepared to plunge into this uncharted conversation with his father. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to tread carefully. This was not just another discussion. It was a reckoning, a confrontation with buried memories that could reshape their relationship fundamentally. "Let us sit down," Nate suggested cautiously, gesturing toward the weathered couch that had seen better days. He wanted to cultivate an atmosphere that invited sharing rather than retreat. As they settled, he could see his father's hands tremble ever so slightly. It mirrored his own uncertainty. Both men were grappling with unexpressed words and unshed tears. "What do you want to talk about?" His father's timidity shattered the stillness, an echo of apprehension that Nate could empathize with, his own voice barely above a whisper. "A lot has changed between us, hasn't it? We haven't spoken in years." The words tumbled out, propelled by a mixture of admiration-forged courage and desperation. He couldn't help but wonder if his father had been waiting, too, for this moment to arise, if all this time they had been standing at the edges of a great abyss, peering down yet fearful to leap. His father shifted in his seat, his eyes darting away, as if the question itself had been a hair trigger to a minefield. "What about all the things from the past? The pain? I know there's a lot we haven't addressed. I feel it. I lived it." Nate pressed, his voice steadier. "But we owe it to Caleb and ourselves to redefine what this family means, to understand where we're coming from." The look on his father's face was a blend of skepticism and something deeper, perhaps recognition of a chance for renewal. Yet the reluctance lingered, thick as the dust in the corners of the room. Nate deliberated internally, scanning their shared history for a topic that could break the tension, a shared moment filled with promise instead of regret. "What about when we went fishing at the lake? You used to make it fun, even when the fish weren't biting." The memory poured out of him, vivid yet tinged with the sweetness that had long turned sour. "Those were good times, right?" His father's demeanor softened for just a heartbeat, a flicker of a smile dancing on his lips. "You used to reel in fish bigger than you." In that moment, realization hit Nate. Nostalgia could bridge the distance between trust and vulnerability. "Yeah, and you made me believe I was the best fisherman in the world. You always cheered me on. But cheering is all I did. I didn't teach you to really fish." His father's voice broke, the weight of unresolved guilt spilling onto the surface. "It's hard when all you have is mistakes and limited instruction. Maybe we can teach each other now." Nate felt the shift, a subtle bending of barriers, a softening within him and his father, a shared willingness to expose rawness and repair broken threads. "What do you want me to teach you?" said his father, vulnerability crackling beneath the surface. Nate searched for a response, uncertain if he had the strength to voice the truth that whispered insistently in the recesses of his mind. It was more than fishing. He needed to discover the uncharted scenes of their shared history, to grieve what was lost before rewriting their story. "I want to understand you, Dad. Not just the mistakes, but the choices that made you who you are. I want to see us as men, no matter how imperfect. I finally want to grow from the past instead of running away from it." Silence fell between them, saturated with potential. Nate's eyes held his father's gaze, urging him to break free from fear and dive into this murky ocean together. Would his father respond with openness, or recoil behind walls thick with doubt? The moment expanded, stretching like a taut bowstring ready to snap. But before either could speak again, Caleb poked his head back in, breaking the tension like a ray of light. "Can we go outside now? I want to catch bugs with Grandpa." Nate exhaled, knowing the interjection was both a distraction and an invitation for his father. Yet as they looked at one another, he couldn't shake the thought. The real catch was still waiting, concealed beneath layers of unspoken fears. Unresolved, raw, and achingly real. Would this be the day they finally started fishing for truths, or would it slip away, just like time? The sun hung low in the sky as Nate and his father stepped outside, the evening air thick with the smells of summer. Caleb dashed ahead, his laughter filling the space between them, while Nate felt the weight of the unfinished conversation linger, hovering like a ghost that refused to be exorcised. "Your brother always loved chasing fireflies," his father said, a note of nostalgia mingling with something softer, hopeful even. Nate nodded but felt a knot in his stomach. The innocence of that statement was a stark reminder of the gaps they still needed to bridge. "Yeah, he did. Wish we could catch fireflies tonight," Nate replied, attempting to match his father's lighthearted tone, but the gravity of their previous exchange still held him captive. They walked towards the backyard, a haven of childhood memories. Nate spotted the old fishing gear resting in the corner of the shed, a symbol of both tradition and loss. Let us see if you still remember how to cast a line, his father offered, nudging him forward. For a moment, Nate's heart raced, his thoughts swirling with both fatigue and excitement. Teaching was a chance for redemption, but would he find the patience to guide his father through this process as well? Maybe we can try tomorrow, he suggested, feeling the anxiety of expectation creeping in. Though the idea of casting a line together sent a thrill through him, he hesitated. The session would require more than hooks and reels. It would demand honesty and raw willingness to confront the unvarnished truth about their past. Caleb returned, covered in dirt and grinning, a handful of clumsily caught bugs clutched in his tiny fingers. "Look, Dad. Grandpa, can we let them go in the pond?" Nate watched the exchange, a fleeting warmth coursing through him. His father knelt beside Caleb, attentive and kind in a way Nate hadn't seen in years. Perhaps Caleb would be the catalyst, guiding them both toward healing through innocence. He wondered, would his father continue this gentler role when they turned back to face the shadows of their history? "Let us head to the pond," Nate suggested, his voice stronger now, infused with a sense of purpose. As they walked, he realized that every step toward the water represented steps toward embracing their shared past. The juxtaposition of nature's beauty and their intertwined anguish illuminated the vastness of their familial relationship. As they arrived, Caleb's youthful enthusiasm ignited something within Nate. The fraught conversation about their past felt almost distant, pulled into the background as they engaged with the world around them. Yet Nate deeply understood that this moment couldn't serve as an escape. It had to be a launch pad. "Dad," he began, the words forming in his throat. "About what we talked about earlier, I think we need to choose a day to really sit down together, without distractions. I still want to know your story." His father paused, the sunlight draping his features in soft gold. "I know we have things to sort through, but I'm scared," he admitted, his voice nearly cracking. "What if I just don't have the answers?" "Then we'll ask questions until we find them," Nate replied, his resolve solidifying as he spoke. "I want you to know that I'm not here to blame you. I just want to understand. I want to understand us." The air hung still, heavy with meaning and potential. Nate searched his father's eyes, hoping to see a response that validated his own courage. "I've spent too long hiding," his father murmured, the remorse in his expression palpable. "I don't know where to begin, but I want to try." A spark of determination ignited within Nate. This was a breakthrough, albeit one rooted in painful truths. But as he gazed at the fading sunlight reflecting upon the pond's surface, he felt the undeniable weight lift, leaving swirling currents of hope in its wake. Yet deep inside, Nate questioned how they'd finally put their past to rest, or if it would shadow them constantly. Would tomorrow bring clarity, or would his father's fear drive a wedge between them once again? Days turned into weeks, with anticipation and unease dancing around Nate as he prepared for their next conversation. The prospect of delving deep into the past loomed omnipresent. They had established a tentative bond during those early interactions, but would the fragile threads of their newfound connection hold against the weight of old wounds? The air crackled with potential as Nate sat down one evening, his routine marked by a determination to engage honestly. He penned an email to his father, crafting the right words to initiate this deeper exploration. After countless revisions, his heart surged with pride. This approach wasn't merely about confronting pain. It was an invitation toward understanding, urging reconciliation without the shackles of ancient grievances. He pressed send. The response came within the hour, filled with unexpected humility. "I want to do this, son. Thank you for giving me a chance," it read, bringing with it a mixture of relief and apprehension. Nate had taken a monumental step toward healing, a precursor to growth. With each day leading up to their meeting, he felt a swell of confidence blossoming in tandem with nervousness. The memories tied to the meeting were heavy, but so was the responsibility of transformation. Nate desired their conversations not just to unearth resentment, but to foster understanding. He envisioned them as an expedition into the past to unearth roots of strength together. On the designated day, as Nate prepared, he took Caleb aside. "Do you remember what we talked about?" We're going to hear stories from Grandpa today. His stories, Nate said, carefully watching his son's reaction. Caleb's bright eyes gleamed with innocence, mirroring hope he hadn't yet extinguished. Superheroes can have sad stories too, right? Caleb replied earnestly, his excitement cutting through Nate's trepidation. But then they can be happy. Exactly, buddy, Nate affirmed, his heart swelling as he recognized the truth in Caleb's words. They all bore their struggles, and perhaps confronting them was the very key to unlocking joy. He knelt to Caleb's level, clutching his shoulders. Let us show him how strong we are. As they arrived at his father's house, an unnerving silence filled the space between Nate and Caleb, yet he felt an electrifying clarity. They approached the front door together, and as Caleb bounded forward, Nate's resolve coalesced. This time, things had to be different. His father opened the door, weariness etched into his features, but a glimmer of anticipation sparked in his eyes. Nate stepped inside, letting Caleb, full of enthusiasm, lead the way. The wooden furniture felt steeped in memories, the air thick with possibility. Ready? Nate began, feeling the gravity of the moment settle over them. His heart raced with urgency. Let us start, his father replied, the tremor in his voice reflecting the shared weight of their past. As they settled on the worn couch, Nate glanced at his father, ready to plunge into the heart of their fractured history. With a deep breath, he asked, "What drove us apart, Dad?" The question hung in the air, searching for connection amidst years of distance. "I was scared for so much," his father murmured, tears brimming as he searched for admission. "I didn't want to be the same man who hurt for so long. So I withdrew." Nate listened intently, his heart swelling with compassion as small fissures began to appear through their histories, revealing connections they hadn't navigated before. "I forgave you many years ago," Nate began cautiously, "but I didn't know how to trust that you were still in there somewhere, the man I needed." I feared what that meant for Caleb. Silence enveloped them, and the truth felt nearly palpable. Nate noticed the changes blooming within his father's demeanor. Vulnerability painted emotions on his face, deepening the way they could connect. "I understand," his father replied, guilt heavy across his brow. "I've built so many walls to keep everyone away, even myself. But with Caleb, you've opened a door that I thought would stay shut forever." Nate felt a mix of relief and frustration at this realization. Memories rushed back to him of fishing trips spent in silence, moments lost to misunderstood motives. But here they were, stitching wounds that had gaped for years. "It's time for us to build stone, to grow not just towards forgiveness but towards understanding what family truly means." His father's eyes reflected a burgeoning understanding. "I am ready, Nate. Let us define this together." Tension shifted into something gossamer fragile, yet firmly rooted in hope. They journeyed through the memories, unraveling them together, unearthing secrets they had avoided for so long. With each story shared, Nate felt a tangible release. "Thank you for sharing all this with me," Nate remarked at one point, their voices blending in meaningful conversation. "I feel it's necessary for Caleb's future to understand what it means to love unconditionally in spite of difficulty." As the meeting subtracted years of silence, Nate noticed the emotional weight of their previous burdens mutate into shared strength. Eventually, once they ran out of old hurts to bring forth, he turned to Caleb, who had been quietly observing with rapt attention. "What did you think?" Nate asked. Caleb beamed. "I think magic comes from being brave, just like you said." He bounded towards his grandfather, urging him to join his imaginary world, a child leading them into joy. Nate couldn't contain his smile. The transformation was profound. The past no longer wielded power over them, instead reframing their future with the promise of loyalty and compassion. His father had come to life again, emerging from what he had once believed irreparably damaged. "What can we do next to keep building?" Nate's father inquired, embracing the optimism. Nate's heart soared. "Let us continue talking but also create something together, a routine, a tradition. Caleb deserves to see that families can redefine themselves continuously." Weeks later, standing in his kitchen, Nate felt a deep satisfaction swell within him. The bond with his father had solidified, reminding him of the time they had laughed over shared meals, spent afternoons fishing without the heaviness of the past, or affectionately steering Caleb through life's ups and downs. As he prepared family dinner with his father and Caleb, he realized they had all conquered long-held misunderstandings. The scars that life etched in him had transformed into badges of honor. They were reminders of growth, rebuilding a celebration of triumph over turbulence. Nate's strength didn't come from absence. It erupted from the conversations held, the laughter shared, and the tears shed. With a renewed sense of purpose, Nate knew they had built a foundation sturdy enough to withstand whatever storms life would throw their way. They had woven a narrative of redemption, one that would guide their family forward into the unknown, steadfast and resilient. And with a glance toward Caleb, as he animatedly narrated his latest adventures, Nate finally recognized what fulfillment truly meant. It stemmed from understanding, courage, and embracing the complexities of each day as they forged ahead together. This was the moment Nate had fought for, the moment when brokenness birthed wholeness, forever altering the trajectory of their family's story. If you resonate with transformation stories, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your thoughts and theories about this powerful conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring journey of overcoming personal challenges.